Hello, people, and welcome back to the Tech of Tomorrow podcast with Sebastian Hidalgo. I am Sebastian Hidalgo, and this is the podcast where we believe that the real technology of the future are the humans building the technology. Before we begin introducing our guests today, because we got more than one, remember, follow the show, subscribe to the channel, leave a rating on Spotify, Apple, and all the platforms because it helps me keep growing this show and keep it going to bring in more cool guests like the ones you are about to meet today. Which leads me to the fact that today we have two people from one company. The company is called Mimic Productions. It is a 3D motion capture and animation studio specializing in smart avatars and digital humans. They serve over 20 industries worldwide, and among their client list, you have celebrities such as Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Kanye West, and brands such as Warner Bros., Nike, Adidas, and Coca-Cola. So we're not talking small things here. I'm very excited for this episode. And with that, I would like to welcome uh, David Bennett, the CEO of Mimic Productions, and Violeta Vasileva, the Partnerships and Growth Manager at Mimic Productions. Hello, David. Hello, Violeta. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Hi, Sebastian. Thank you for having us today. We're also super excited.
It's great to have you on. Listen, where do we start here? Because what you do is quite original. I don't think there are many companies doing that. So I would say, how did Mimic Productions get started?
Yeah, sure. Man-Made Productions, it's a great story if you want to hear it. It started as an idea about maybe 20 years ago, but it didn't get created until 12 years ago. And it started with a dream to make a robotics company, strangely enough. And I became obsessed with robotics for a period of time, and ended up writing a couple of patents, one on robotic skin and one on artificial intelligence. And basically, it started as this dream to make this stuff, and then ended up losing my job, and I was in Germany, and I was like, well, I either need to learn German, leave Germany, or start a company. And so I started a company instead, because it was the easier option at the time. But I kind of shifted from robotics and went back to what I was more naturally more experienced in, which was digital humans. Because, well, before I started the company, I used to be in charge of like the facial animation on a lot of big movies because I was a bit of a pioneer in facial animation, working on movies like Avatar, Tintin, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. We did the facial animation on Beowulf and Monster House and Polar Express as well. And that was my career before starting Mimic. And we started Mimic with this idea that I wanted to try to, at that time in particular, there was there was very, very high quality graphics in movies like Avatar, but it really hadn't been distributed to a lot of different other industries. Because we work in over 20 different industries, because it goes from fashion to holograms, games, VFX, AI avatars, robotics, and basically anywhere where you can have a digital human. And that, lo and behold, that's what we ended up doing over time. We did work with all of these different emerging medias, bringing the same quality that we would bring to a movie into various different mediums.
That is a wild story. So you worked on the facial animation for Avatar.
Yeah, I was managing the team on the facial motion capture. Yes.
Crazy. That's one of my favorite movies and also probably everybody's favorite movies. So that's why I was like a little bit taken
Okay.
by surprise.
It certainly is a
Now,
popular one.
how what were the challenges that you found in bringing facial animation and digital humans into the market? How did you know who to sell to, what to tell them, how to pitch?
You know, it's kind of it wasn't hard. So basically the way it started is I put up the website and I was just kind of listing myself as a consultant at the time. But really the market just came to us. I know that sounds weird, but as soon as I started the company, we did a Kanye West project. And then we started doing we did a project where we almost ended up working on the next Call of Duty, and we did a bunch of tests for that. And like there was immediate, and then a Cartier as well. It just immediately came in, and I think it was because at the time my skill set was so specialized, coming from the movies, it really hadn't, got into these other areas. So there was automatically a need, and so we just started making work right away. We didn't really have to look for it, and it just kept on finding us for 12 years straight now. But we do now we're approaching the market differently, but in the beginning, it just arrived. I mean, I think one of the things that kind of helped that not only to my own personal experience, but also it was the fact that at right before I started my company, I used to work at a company called Faceware, and I became a business developer there for about 9 to 10 months. And during that period, I gained a lot of access to a lot of profiles. I was linking in with a lot of different people. The number of people I knew grew substantially before I started the company. And at this point, I have 17,000 followers on LinkedIn. So that really helps when you can get your voice out there and tell what you're all about.
Maybe just to jump in here, maybe also around that time, David, when you started, it was also kind of the industry was looking for more digital content, because you had the boom of different social media platforms, different social channels. So it was not only having a TV or, the old school mainstream media, but there was like a lot of digital transition happening in the entertainment sector. And I think exactly at that point of time, early 2000s or mid 2000s, it was when, basically it gave a big kickoff. And I think it was just like the right timing also for Mimic to start operating that sector. So I think that kind of transition in the market in the industry was some kind of aligned with the start of Mimic and bringing digital humans to more areas than just VFX.
So I would follow up here with a question that probably somebody in the audience is having in their head now. What was your project with Kanye West about? What did you do for him?
Yeah, I mean, we worked on a music video called Black Skinhead, and we did the facial animation and rigging for that music video. It was an interesting project. Normally we'd probably give like 6 to 8 weeks for that kind of work that we did, maybe even all the way up to 3 months. But Kanye needed it done in 4 days, and so we're like, well, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. But then again, it's like Kanye, right? So you kind of go, okay, yeah, we'll do it. We'll figure out a way and make it work. It got extended to about 7 days in the end, I think, but 4 days is what we were up against in the beginning, and it was a very, very intense project, and it was all happening very early on in Mimic's career. I was actually even working out of my house at the time, before we got everything going. And we're not working on the house now. We have a massive, beautiful studio, but at the time, that's kind of how it went. So it's very early.
What about Lady Gaga and Beyonce?
Yeah, those projects, those two projects, they were interesting ones. They were kind of smaller ones for us. They were both for their visuals at their music videos. For us, those were like the ones that they have whenever they sing live. They were like in the background, but those ones were actually quite a bit easier for us. It was a bit more planned, more streamlined, more normal kind of production for us. But there's what's interesting, I think about all these projects is, I think I mentioned there's like 500 of them or something that we've done. So they kind of there's a lot of them, and some of all the different projects had different challenges. But on the Beyonce and the Lady Gaga one, they were more stylized in the way they looked rather than looking super photorealistic.
So you mentioned it's been over 12 years. So does your work look very different now from what it looked like at the beginning? How much has it changed over time?
Yeah. I mean, it's changed a lot over time. Stuff we were struggling with in the beginning is no longer an issue. And stuff that we've done has been automated. Many aspects have been automated. Everything was a bit more manual and a bit more wild west, I guess, when we started, in the sense that it was really hard to create these levels of realism, especially quickly, because there was like a lot of rendering and stuff. But when we started, one of the big transformations that happened, I guess, for us is we started using the game engine more. And not only did that speed things up, we could see and visualize stuff much, much faster than any time that we could in the past. And the use of the game engine is becoming even more popular these days. A lot of times for like not usually movies or TV shows yet, but like for commercials and different ways of visualizing stuff. It can be a really good way to automate the speed at which you can create content. So we use it on music videos, things with tight deadlines, stuff where they need real-time characters and projects like that. So it did change. It changed there. There was a lot of change in motion capture. Before we would always have to put dots all over the bodies. Now there's like suits that they can wear that don't require cameras outside. Another big change is we built a scanner. We have a 100 camera scanner that can scan people's bodies. And when we started, this technology wasn't available. There were some scanners, but not like big photogrammetry setups like we have now. We have two large ones that are about 100 cameras each. And what they can do is they can scan you kind of in one button click. And so we built this system internally so that we could capture people and use this as a base to build our characters with. This made a huge difference because, well, A, a lot of people want scans, and that's a great thing. But B, it gave us the opportunity to get really, really lifelike and not have to depend on people's artistic abilities in 3D to create something. We could use the scan as a reference to build upon it and make more photorealistic humans. So that the scanner combined with the gaming engine, I think really opened up a lot of things and made a lot more possibilities available. And now it's even transforming even more right now with AI videos and stuff like that that's coming out. And so we're really, especially this year, it's the last 2 years has been quite transformative what's happening in my space that we're in, and at the speed at which you can create certain things. And these transformations really add up over time.
How do you see AI shaping your specific industry? Is it a problem for you that there are models like Sora or like the other ones that actually perform better, or does it actually enhance your work?
Well, when I first saw the onslaught of Sora and these other tools, it was pretty scary. I was like, oh boy, what does this mean to my company? But they've been out there for about a year now, and ChatGPT's been out for about 2 years, 4.0. And it doesn't seem like it did. It just opened up a lot more opportunities for us. For example, due to these video AI projects, currently we're working with this Singaporean artist that came to me, and he's a very talented artist. And he's widely known, but he came to us with a budget that's much smaller than his imagination. And he's an incredibly imaginative guy. But what that meant to us is I was like, hey, well, maybe we could use this because you simply don't have the budget to build this in a traditional way. And so we used AI to help him build this we're using AI right now to help them build this project. So, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I think that in a lot of cases we're utilizing AI, this type of AI, every single day, not only for this project, but for internal marketing stuff and building different brands and essentially growing the company. I look at AI as currently as an extension of my imagination of what we can do, what we can make, and how we can grow the company into the future. Of course, it's really unclear what happens in the future, because right now, I mean, we're doing, like, most of our work is not video based. Most of our work has always been 3D based. So there's a lot of applications in 3D still. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I love it and hate it and scared of it. But more often than not, this year's been really good for Mimic. So maybe those fears were unwarranted, and it's just something that really helps us as a tool to accelerate what we're doing already. That's what it appears to be.
You've been around for a while. Where do you see Mimic going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, we'll continue doing what we're doing with digital humans, provided AI doesn't do it better than us at some point in time. But I mean, how about we start with the next year first? So we've been building 20 different brands in multiple different industries. And we do have we're always improving. First off, we're always improving our AI character here, which we call Kai, which is a different subject from Mimic Minds, which is a branch of Mimic. But we've also built 20 more brands, and these are reaching out into multiple different industries. And I think basically what you're going to see from Mimic is a tremendous amount of growth, far exceeding what we've seen in the last year. And it's been pretty amazing what happened last year, the year we're finishing up. And I think it's only going to accelerate that. I think you're going to see us a lot more, not just in the AI and digital human sector. You're going to see us more in healthcare. You're going to see us more in science. You're going to see us really working to grow things in multiple different dimensions with XR and various different brands to grow. So we're looking at this as an opportunity, and we see explosive growth, almost like a second wind coming into us. After being a company for 12 years, AI and the power of AI has been a second wind for our company, going to make it more transformative, making a much bigger impact into the future.
You mentioned the AI character that right now we see behind you. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so this is, you can kind of see a little bit of it. This is Kai. This is, what's interesting about this character, it's not a character that we built for a client. It's our internal character. And Kai is an AI smart avatar. And so about 2 years ago, we started hooking up AI to our characters. And so now you can talk to the characters, they'll talk back to you on the screen, essentially like giving ChatGPT a face. And we're doing really interesting things with her because we're trying to make her more adaptable. And like today, for the first time, she was like, we would just talk to her and she would talk back to us, and we'd ask her to make a picture, and she starts making pictures on the screen. And we're trying to make her a lot more multimodal, which means she can see, read, talk, becoming more human, essentially, with more senses. And that's one of the big tests that we're continue to push with her. You'll see a lot coming from her soon. I've been talking about her at the United Nations recently. I've been talking about her. We've done over 60 conferences this year talking about our efforts in smart avatar digital humans, which is 60 conferences is a lot. And I'm not counting a lot of them where I do 2 or 3 speaking spots at each conference. So it's really gained a lot of traction with this, the work we're doing with our AI smart avatars. because I think a lot of people are very interested in what's coming. And yeah, that's probably going to be the most thing you're going to really start to see a lot more, not only from our company, but from lots of other companies. I think 2025 will be the wave of AI smart avatars, and you'll start to see them come into place. And there's a lot of great uses for them. You know, they too span over a bunch of industries, like from education to healthcare to science to learning, and they have a tremendous amount of benefit because they're you know, they can be quite inclusive and sustainable for generations, and it can be quite useful for people that you know, have learning disabilities, for them to teach them, or if they have jump in here, Violeta, if you want.
Yeah, there could be very interesting use cases for remote areas, for example, where you want to provide very specific education, or, you know, good tutors or education for a specific topic. And it's very hard to find a specialist on a local region, you know, so it could be a very good digital tutor that is available 24/7 and in all time zones. Because what we encountered with education, we have been with conversations with a few universities and the professor who are very interested into a smart avatar solution. And it's because in the end, human tutors, we are people, right? So we require some hours to sleep, we require hours to eat, we require hours to rest. And we have to be also available for our students, or, you know, people we take care of in our daily lives. So sometimes, especially when you have educational solutions, you know, and all these digital platforms right now, and them being distributed in different countries, you know, sometimes the people tutors are not always available, and they cannot be as well. You know, we don't want every human to be available 24/7. So this avatars could be also a very good solution to address these kind of challenges, to provide basically the accessibility and support that others need when they need it.
I like these use cases. I think the first thing somebody not into the industry, not familiar with this topic, would think when they hear that these avatars can be used in learning is that they will replace teachers. However, I do like that you will be deploying them to reach remote areas where there's needs for specific knowledge. That said, playing devil's advocate, should teachers be afraid of digital tutors?
David, should you jump in or should I?
You know, you could jump in there. The first thing I would add is that something about our digital tutors is that, you know, our AI avatars can speak any language. So there's some severe benefits to our AI avatars as teachers, because it really means they can get to some very remote areas that might not have the same level of access, really giving some children, you know, an opportunity that they just wouldn't have had normally, because they just may not have the same infrastructure. I think this is a positive thing. Regarding teachers,
also for teachers, just to mention, sorry, David, I just jumped in, but since you were speaking about specific teachers, it's also, you know, if you're a teacher and you have a specific knowledge, like you're a university professor or any kind of lecturer, also language barrier could be a huge constraint for you to deliver those lectures in different areas as well. So, you know, we're not talking only about real-time translation, we are also talking about 24/7 availability as well. Because like if you yourself are, let's say, a professor in electronical engineering, just putting out of the blue, you know, and you have a specific knowledge domain that you want to distribute all across the world in real time. So, for example, students can ask you questions and interact with you, but you're not available. and also it's done in a language which is not your native language or you don't speak, that could be an interesting use case as well. I mean, we're talking quite a little bit, in a future-oriented scenario, but, my question then would be, how far is the future? Because in a way, we are now creating it, and we know that acceleration of technology and its development is going way faster than before. So this could be very realistic scenarios in less than 10 years already.
Yeah. I just to add to that, I really don't think teachers are going to lose their jobs. Personally, I think it's more like a teacher helper. I think teachers, I think socially, we like people like sending their kids to school. I think kids like to go to school to learn social behaviors, and I think there's really a lot more that's learned by a human being in the classroom than what a digital human could do, just due to some issues. But I look at more as they can be more like somebody that helps them after school and stuff like that. But I'm sure they'll be used in the schoolrooms. We're in discussions about this all the time.
Yeah, and also maybe, in the end of the day, there is also a lot of information online, some may say, but also there's a lot of fake information and not real one. So in the end, the human knowledge, human experience, and verified, facts sometimes is something we will be looking into. So actually personalized tutors or extension of, a teacher that you could also verify specific knowledge, and some knowledge gaps could be something very useful in the future, because we don't know how, everything will develop and what kind of content will be created more and more. But right now there's a big problem with that.
Thank you for the answer. I like that. Now, it seems to me like there is no shortage of opportunities for Mimic to keep growing and keep developing new solutions, which leads me to the question, what are the challenges you see as potential obstacles to your growth plans and your goals in the coming years?
I mean, timing and AI, that's a huge one. Obviously, AI is going to dominate a lot of areas. So it's about hitting the right amount of speed at the right area to grow and catapult yourself into the next, I guess, like realm of business. Because I don't see it staying stagnant. I see it being very transformative. Business in general, the way you're going to have to do things. So standing in my way is maybe just timing, I guess, and how fast I push things, and if we make the right decisions at the right time. Timing becomes more and more critical the further we go into AI. On where if you do something here, where you're going to be there, and other than that, I mean, it's definitely not financial. We can do what we need to do as a company with the means that we have. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, essentially, when right after ChatGPT came out and this video AI stuff started happening more, it really kind of unlocked the Pandora's box on one's imagination and what you can achieve. And so there's not many limitations. It's more, could something become obsolete, I think.
So are there many competitors also in your space, or is the barrier to entry not that easy to overcome? How do you see that?
The barrier to entry? I mean, the barrier to entry with AI videos is certainly lower than 3D. 3D is, you have to have quite specialized knowledge. It takes a lot of training. You have to work in teams. It takes a lot of people and a lot of coordination even to make anything happen. Yeah, I think that.
So with that context, what are your latest works and projects, stuff you're excited about, things you can share with the audience?
Yeah, we worked on quite a big project this year. It's out right now. It's for Coca-Cola. We worked with OpenAI and Microsoft, Accenture, Leonardo AI. Was there anybody else, Violeta?
And Universal Music as well.
Universal Music to basically build an AI Santa Claus. We did more of the visual effects behind it, like by making the 3D and the animations that was used for training data. And it's a pretty massive, epic AI uh, uh, program. I mean, it's from Coca-Cola. They're advertising the heck out of it right now. I think it's potentially the most famous AI digital human project that's ever been created throughout history of mankind. And it's certainly something worth checking out. That was probably a big one. Other than that, we do and we do probably maybe 20 or 30 different kinds of projects throughout the year. But that was certainly the biggest, most famous one this year.
Where
It's
can people? Sorry.
called Create Real Magic. You can already check it. And I think this project really represents, the state of the AI for the creative sector. I think it's really a cool project because it not only it shows basically the capabilities of generative AI in a advertising campaign in a very personal way. And I would advise everyone to try the season. You can check it on the website or I think by scanning a QR code. But it's super exciting and it's super cool to see basically one of the most iconic image of Santa, which is a Sunbomb Santa, the first one created. Actually speaking to you and interacting with you. I think that's quite fascinating, especially for a bit older kids like us who grew up with a lot of commercials, and different visions of Santa traveling the world and doing his magic. So it's definitely one of my favorite projects for this year and highlight of the season because Christmas is a few days from now. So yeah, quite cool.
So to find it, I just had to Google real magic and I will find it.
Create Real Magic, and you can just go to the official Coca-Cola website. And the cool thing is that it can talk to the language of your location. So he speaks Spanish, he speaks Korean, he speaks German, he speaks British, all the languages. So that's also very nice to also hear how Santa voice sounds in different languages. It's quite impressive.
Fascinating. I will be giving it a shot. By the way, talking about learning languages, David, you mentioned that among your options at the beginning was learning German. Did you end up learning German?
Well, don't tell any Germans this, but I've been here 12 years, and no, I don't know any German at all, really. I can read the menu. That's about it.
Fair. All we need is English. I keep saying that to people.
Yeah.
Listen, something that we haven't touched upon is the fact that you were in Rome and you were talking about AI with none other than the Pope. That was at the World Humanity Forum. So, can you share more about what the World Humanity Forum is and what it was like to be there in Rome talking about artificial intelligence with the Pope?
Okay. Um, so it was a pretty awesome experience. We ended up going there, showing up to Rome. Apparently, he likes to get up very, very, very early in the morning.
7 a.m. You have to be at the gates of Vatican before preparing for the meeting with him. So that was already quite exciting, the whole wait, because it took like maybe around 1 hour and a half before we passed all the different procedures and go into the room where he was, or actually where he came later.
Yeah. And yeah, we got there and it was a smaller room. Maybe there were like 30 people or 40 people there. And he came out and he did his thing. He read something in Italian. I'm not sure what he said. But but actually I do know there was like a pamphlet that was in English so we could understand what he was saying. And he was basically talking about um, how interested they were in the human economic form due to the good that it could do. And we had a brief conversation as we were shaking his hands and stuff. It was very brief, but we got to speak with him, and it was very interesting, very kind of interesting that to me that the Pope is even interested in AI, but he is very interested in AI and in the way that the technology affects the people around the world, and that's why he's actually got other people that are looking into AI for him as well, from the Vatican.
Do you
Maybe
think
Violeta.
that the Vatican is looking into, I don't know, sounds weird, but do you think they are looking into investing in AI either internally or for their daily work? Was there any concrete use case discussed?
No, I think they're more interested in the impact and what that could mean to people. And I think that's a little bit about what the Humanity Economic Forum is about. And it's really about with AI, like always, it's a double-edged sword. It's got a lot of positives that can come, but certain people are concerned about it too. And I think he's really wanting to hear the concerns of the people and try to come up with some solutions and ways to talk about this in the best way, because it is very concerning, of course.
Were there also specific concerns regarding AI ethics discussed, or was it more generic?
I think
Yeah.
the forum was a little bit more like a discussion to address the key dilemmas when it comes to AI and digital technologies, and more about what is the human entity, what is the human role in such a digital structure, let's say digital infrastructure. And from what I understood, because the thing is, a lot of the conversations were in Italian, there was some translation, but the forum was kind of the idea behind it was on a research and information about building a taxonomy about human actors and AI actors when it comes to verification of different agents online. So, for example, if you have someone doing a digital, I don't know how to say, digital operation or digital transaction, how to be able to identify if it's a human or a virtual agent, and to distinguish that. And in general, in the future, how to define a taxonomy, what means to be a virtual agent, what means to be a human agent, and what are the limitations and what are the opportunities for both. So it was a little bit more looking into things like privacy, ethics, of course, regulation. More it was tailored towards the Italian regulation, I think, because every country in the end has its own policies. But it definitely also touched point on the sustainable aspect. And I think the whole idea that Vatican was behind it is because they acknowledge that this technology is having transformative impact on our society in many different ways. And it's already there, either we see it or not. I mean, we're quite dependent on a lot of technology, a lot of digital data, a lot of digital infrastructures that we cannot see, but it's part of our daily life. And with AI, that power amplifies even more. So the forum was more like a reflection and, tackle different angles of a conversation, how to tackle as a human such an infrastructure, and what will be the human role in the end of the day. Are we just the creators? Are we the users? Are we the co-creators? Are we the adopters? Like, what is the correlation between technology and humanity in that sense?
Was there an answer? Are we creators, co-creators? Are we users?
I think that's a very subjective opinion. I think that's according to every person. And I think also it's very hard to come up with a common definition. I think that's why these kind of forums are very important in order to understand the different points and the different angles, the different cultural backgrounds, and the different aspects of what it means. Because we recently were part of a roundtable, big roundtable about ethical AI, especially in the use of the creative sector. And we realized that for a lot of people, AI means a lot of different things. So if you use AI for IP, let's say, or when you regard AI in the context of a IP, it's a completely different case if you regard AI, let's say, for enterprise use as a software as a service. So the context of what AI can be applied in is very different. And that's why our understanding, and dilemmas with it are also various because they're not the same. So that was, the biggest outcome for me from that roundtable that took place, I think, 2 months ago, the French embassy in Berlin, was that everybody has completely different understanding of AI. And they refer to it as one single solution. And in reality, I think we're talking about many different kinds of AIs for very different industries. So things even become more complicated.
So that said, what is your view on regulation, right? Because I always see this debate online, is especially in Europe, is AI overregulated? Are we lagging behind in innovation? Or are we just the necessary counterbalance to the wild west of AI everywhere else in the world?
Um, well, what the question is, what is regulation accomplishing right now? A lot of the regulation that's coming out right now is making large American AI companies say, okay, we're just not going to put it in Europe. Like, for example, Meta's removed some AI features in Europe. So Sora is not available in Europe. It's available to the rest of the world. LinkedIn's special AI features aren't available in Europe. So the regulation, I don't know if it's really regulating AI companies or if it's just deterring them from giving these amazing products to us to use. So if Europe wants to stay competitive, in my opinion, then they need to develop their own AI tools that meet the regulations or change the regulations. And I don't think it would take too much of a change. There's one specific area within the EU AI Act, which I think is a little bit concerning because it wants the companies to give every single data source to which they use their generative AI from. From my perspective, that's just going to set an American company up for a lot of lawsuits saying that we're basically using the entire internet and everybody can sue me now. So if the EU stands strong behind this, showing every bit of data set that they have, I think the regulation will effectively just deter American companies from putting the technology into Europe, which is dangerous. It's dangerous kind of to have it here, but it's also dangerous for us to not have it here because if we're competing against countries and especially with the German market so fragile right now, the German economy, against countries that can use the AI tools, then it could render some companies not as competitive in Europe. And I think that's a pretty spooky thing about regulation. But I think even though it is the wild, wild west for AI, I would also say it's the wild, wild west for regulation as well, and what the right thing to do is at this point in time. So it's not clear that the decisions made by the the EU AI Act are the right decisions for the people, at least in my mind. But I think it's still quite new, and I think that there's a lot that's going to be done within regulation. But I don't think it should be totally unregulated either. And I don't think it ever will be in any country, because I think complete unregulated AI whatsoever could really do some damage. And the stronger AI gets, the stronger the regulation will need to get to protect us. So I think it's really about what you're regulating and how you're regulating it, and what, if you're a company and you're faced with the decision of get fined or sued for putting your software in a country, and the amounts are high enough, you're just going to say no.
Yeah, maybe I'm repeating myself, but maybe, also when it comes to regulation in AI, is like should be looked, not as one single regulation for, generally AI. Maybe it should be regulation by specific industry for the use cases. So maybe the way we look even as regulation should be different when it comes to such a technology that is so, transvertical. You can use it in so many different industries, and then can it be the same regulation for every single industry? Like, maybe it should be also some flexibility how we look into designing a regulational frameworks. Should it be like based in countries, or specifically focused on sectors or industries? So there's some kind of differentiation, what kind of AI we're talking about. Because I think it's extremely hard to come up with one single policy that affects all AI solutions.
I agree.
That could be also interesting, and there may be other future options, like introducing an AI tax, or a different kind of regulation when it comes to companies that are using AI. So it's not just like the Wild West, but I think also it's quite new for policymakers, and I think it's, as David said, it's quite a Wild West, and I think everybody still is kind of trying to figure out what is going on and which direction to go. But it will definitely take a lot of collaboration between the private sector and the public sector to make some kind of sense from everything going on right now.
Agree with both of you, actually, because from one side, I do see how regulation in Europe is not regulating, it's just making the companies go, okay, then we don't give you this product, and that's it. And on the other side, I do agree that it is impossible to just regulate AI because there's way too many use cases. Now, something that piques my curiosity now as we speak is, we mentioned competing with the big US companies. I do wonder, is it even possible to compete against them? Meaning, do we have the conditions in Europe to have an OpenAI competitor, to have a Microsoft competitor?
You definitely have the knowledge and the resources in terms of people and research.
And you definitely have the money. It just doesn't necessarily get spent that way.
True.
But there's Minstrel in France, which is a ChatGPT competitor. But unfortunately, I think it's a bit early on. A Microsoft in Europe, that's hard to imagine for me. But a ChatGPT in Europe, yes. But I think it's really, that's a tough question. Like, it's just I guess it's just a different mentality on resource allocation. I mean, America does not have any more resources than Europe. They just spend them a different way, or maybe they do have more resources. I don't really know, but I think Europe's actually a richer country, more rich than the US in total. So I think they can be competitive, and I would like to see them get more competitive in that area, because for me, the best thing in life is like trying to create some sort of innovation and stuff. And I just think it would be great if they were more like-minded in Europe and really trying to make something happening. It does take a lot of resources, but it's just more fun to be part of the game.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I do agree that there is a mindset slash culture problem in Europe when it comes to building big companies or even business in general, right? Europe and maybe especially Germany, they just operate differently from Americans, and I think that's where the whole conundrum is right now.
Yeah.
Maybe there are less risky, like less high risk investments that are happening in Europe than in other continents, from what I know. Maybe that's one of like, which goes again maybe to a little bit of a cultural, more conservative way when you look into investments. But what I definitely can tell is that there's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of talent, there is a lot of research that is happening in Europe. And, it's something that definitely could be monetized. The question is, what's the right way to monetize it? Because in Europe, it seems to have so many different mechanisms and, I don't know, a lot of actors, but, it comes a little bit confusing at times. But I think that's the hardest part, like how to monetize all the knowledge and the research that exists in Europe.
And I think I agree. And I think if Europe also backed off regulation to some degree, it would attract at least American companies to come here more and grow an OpenAI or Microsoft here more often, as they would be able to operate a bit more like they normally do. But yeah. But all that said, I do think regulation is good. It just depends on how you use it, how it's used.
As we said, it's probably better to regulate based on the specific case than just push regulation top down on the whole technology. It's just too broad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Listen.
I mean, because regulation is about creating some kind of standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating a standard that everybody agrees on and that you can use as a framework to reflect where you stand in, your technology, the way you act, everything you are operating, in economy or in society. So it's kind of a framework where you can cross-check. And when it becomes too broad, it becomes extremely complicated. So that's why I think, if it's something more use case related, could maybe simplify things. But as I said, I'm not very an expert. I'm just looking into, if you have a multi-complex solution, is the general approach the better, or you should also tackle it in a more, in separate ways or in a different way, in an innovative way.
Agree. Listen, I think we are almost at the top of the hour. I want to be mindful of your time. So, is there anything you want to share with the audience before we close up the show? Like, for example, where can people find you? Where can we find out more about Mimic Productions?
Well, on the website, mimicproductions.com, sure, is a good place. You can find out a lot about us there. You can also search for David Bennett, Mimic Productions. And like I said, I did over 60 speeches last year, various conferences, South by Southwest, United Nations, Pope. A lot of this stuff is online. You can really learn a lot about us there. And you should definitely go check out mimicminds.com. That's where we're putting, it's the sub-brand Mimic Productions, where we do all the AI avatar stuff. So there's a tremendous amount of things you can find out about us and get more interested in what we do. And we'd be happy to, if people are really interested in what we do, happy to have a chat with them and discuss our services in more detail, our services and technology in more detail.
Thank you. Violeta, anything from your side?
Maybe just to add as a wrap up, it's really exciting times what we're living into. And I think, with all these changes happening, it's interesting, to embrace ourselves and allow ourselves to experiment and be more creative in all the fields that we are or the ones we wanted to be, because also AI opens a lot of opportunity to express yourself. So I think it's all about embracing and experimentation and play. So fun is a big part of it.
I like that. Well, people, this was a great episode. I want to thank the both of you for taking the time to be here. It's really appreciated. I also enjoyed learning about your company.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. It was a pleasure having us. Thank you very much for the invitation.
It was my pleasure. And people listening, this was the Tech of Tomorrow podcast with Sebastian Hidalgo. I am Sebastian Hidalgo. And remember, follow, subscribe, comment, give a rating, helps grow the show. You know the deal already. Today, here with us, Violeta and David from Mimic Productions. Next episode will be, as always, next week. So I will see you in the next one. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.